The Red Keep stood tall under the sun of King's Landing, its towers glinting with gold as dragons circled overhead. The sky was never quiet anymore, not since the great unification of House Targaryen had been sealed by blood and fire. The Redunces. Of the dragons, the brutal civil war that once threatened to shatter the royal family had never happened in this world. Rhaenyra Targaryen and her half-brother Aegon the Seven had never been pitted against one another by scheming lords and prideful ambition. Instead, their marriage had bound the family tighter than Valyrian steel. Rhaenyra had been crowned queen in her father Viserys's final days, as per his dying wish. But instead of being challenged, her claim was supported by her stepmother, Alicent, Hightower, and even more shockingly, by Aegon himself. The union was political at first, but their children, strong, silver-haired, and fiercely intelligent, cemented a bloodline that silenced all dissent. It had been nearly 30 years since the unification, and Westeros had entered a golden age. The small folk called it the Dragon Peace. No rebellion had risen in decades, and the lords of the realm knelt easily, sometimes out of loyalty, sometimes out of fear. Dragons still lived, but now they served a purpose greater than war. They were symbols of dominion and legacy. Each great house offered one child per generation to serve at Dragonstone, where they learned to ride, to govern, and to remember. But peace is a fragile thing, and in Westeros it rarely lasts. Whispers moved like shadows through the halls of the Red Keep. They said the queen, Aelora Targaryen, granddaughter of Rhaenyra and Aegon, was growing restless. Her dragon, Valix, had grown aggressive, snapping at other beasts and burning the sea air with frustration. Some claimed it was a reflection of her own spirit, a signal that she craved more than parades and council meetings. Her brother-husband, Magor, was content to rule from the Iron Throne, but Aelora wanted more. She had dreams of old Valyria, of unclaimed lands across the narrow sea, of dragonkind returning to conquest. At court, older lords began to worry. They had seen ambition tear kings and queens apart before. The peace that had held strong for a generation now felt like thin parchment, ready to tear with the heat of a single flame. In the shadows of Flea Bottom, another rumor spread, one far darker. A bastard born of the Targaryen line had survived, hidden during the last purges. He was no royal, but he bore the silver hair and purple eyes all the same. And he had a dragon egg. If the egg hatched, the blood claim would matter. Far across the sea in Braavos, an old woman sat beside a flame and muttered prophecies. Her blind eyes reflected dancing firelight as she spoke in the old tongue. The fire that unites can also burn. The dragon with two heads must choose which one devours the other. Back in King's Landing, Queen Aelora watched the horizon from her tower window. The wind lifted her hair, and she felt a deep stirring in her bones. Something was coming. Not war, not yet, but something that would force her to choose between peace and legacy, between family and destiny. And somewhere beneath Dragonstone, a soft cracking sound echoed in the night. A dragon egg was hatching. The night sky over Dragonstone rumbled softly as waves crashed against its ancient cliffs. In the heart of the volcanic island, beneath the old citadel built by Aegon the Conqueror himself, something stirred in the stone vaults. The egg had cracked. It was not the first dragon egg to hatch in decades, but it was different. This one had not been recorded in the royal ledgers, not laid in the brooding dens of royal dragons. It had been hidden, smuggled by hands unknown, kept warm in the cellars of silent traitors. And now it was open, revealing a scrawny, hissing hatchling with eyes that burned like violet embers and wings still wet with birth fluid. The man who stood before it, hooded, lean, and scarred, held out his hand with reverence. The creature sniffed, then crawled weakly toward him. The bastard was real. His name was Darren Waters, though no soul alive in Westeros dared speak his full story aloud. Born of a disgraced princess and a Hightower guard, his existence had been scrubbed from every book, every song. But those who served the old gods in the haunted woods of the north whispered of him, and the red priests in Volantis called him Azantis Nuhis, the false flame. Darren had returned to Westeros not just to claim blood, but vengeance. His dragon would grow, and so would his support. Not all were pleased with the Targaryen peace. Lords who once held power through war had grown bored in their gilded prisons. The Reach whispered again. The Stormlands remembered being slighted, and in the Riverlands, House Blackwood, the ancient keepers of old grudges, had begun to call. Banners. In King's Landing, Queen Aelora met in secret with her small council, though she trusted few of them. The Lord Commander of the Kingsguard, Sir Quentin Velaryon, warned her of ships landing quietly near Blackwater Bay, merchant vessels with odd names and no flags. Aelora's eyes narrowed. She knew this pattern. Something ancient and ugly was moving beneath their peace like rot under polished marble. "Is it war?" she asked. "No, Your Grace," Sir Quentin replied. "Not yet, but it smells like it." She dismissed the council, but one voice lingered. Her cousin, Prince Balon, a soft-spoken man known more for his music than politics. Yet tonight, his tone had iron. "Would you strike first, cousin?" he asked. "Would you kill a dragon before it breathes fire?" "I would kill anything that threatens the realm," Aelora said coldly, "even if it bore my blood." Balon studied her. "Then, you are more your mother's daughter than your father's." In the depths of Dragonstone, Darren Waters fed his hatchling pieces of charred lamb and whispered the names of cities he would burn. King's Landing, Old Town, Harrenhal. But one name he said with bitterness on his tongue. "Aelora, your throne sits on a lie," he whispered, touching the hatchling's warm scales. "And I will take it back. But dragons are not puppets." As Darren turned away, the young creature flared its wings and hissed, not at him, but toward the sea. Something else had sensed its birth. Another dragon, another rider, and they were coming. The clouds above Dragonstone churned as a storm gathered, thick and unnatural. It wasn't rain the island feared. It was wings. The dragons were restless. They sensed a rival, one born not in royal chambers, but in shadows. Aelora Targaryen stood on the balcony of her tower, watching the dark skies with her silver-blonde hair whipping in the wind. Her dragon Vilix paced below in the yard, smoke curling from its nostrils, eyes never leaving the sea. Something had changed. Maegor, her brother-husband, remained calm as ever. He believed the rumors of a rogue Targaryen were exaggerated. Tales, told by small folk and fueled by bored lords. He didn't see the cracks widening beneath the peace they had built. Aelora, though, felt it in her bones. This wasn't just talk. This was legacy rising to challenge their dynasty. She summoned her. Brother Balon, now her spymaster. His network stretched from Braavos to Dawn, and he brought her whispers like poison in wine. "There's truth to the bastard," he said, laying a blood-stained map before her. "His name is Darren Waters. He claims descent from Princess Sarah, the one who fled to Lys. The egg he has, it's not a dead one." "It hatched." Aelora clenched her jaw. "Where?" "Dragonmont, a hidden chamber. He has followers, mostly sellswords and outcasts now. But some of them wear old noble colors, Blackwood, Harlaw, even a few Baratheons who never forgave your grandfather." "What does he want?" Balon smiled bitterly. "What all bastards want. A name, a throne, fire." In the skies above the narrow sea, dragons began to stir. Valix wasn't alone anymore. Silverwing, the dragon of young Prince Aemon, Aelora's son, flew beside it now, nervous and watchful. Other beasts remained in their lairs, snarling at unseen threats. The realm's dragons were no longer content to slumber. Across the Blackwater, rush in a burnt-out ruin near Maidenpool, Darren Waters addressed a crowd. No banners flew, only torches. His dragon, still half-grown but fearsome, roared in the darkness behind him. It had been named Morgan, Death in High Valyrian. Its scales were midnight black, its eyes red as flame. It was not a large beast, not yet, but it had flown for the first time the day before and men had begun to kneel. "I am not here to destroy House Targaryen," Darren told them. "I am House Targaryen. I am the fire they tried to drown in shame. I am the legacy they erased." He raised his sword high, and the crowd roared with him. Some were hungry for power, some for gold, but a few, a dangerous few, believed that he was the true heir, and that the throne had been stolen. In King's Landing, Aelora called an emergency council. The realm had been silent too long. Silence meant plotting. "We strike now," she said. "Before this bastard gathers more, we burn his camp to ash." Maegor raised a hand. "We don't even know where he truly is." "Balon knows," she said, eyes sharp. "And I know this. If we wait, we give him time to grow. Not just his army, but his dragon." The old Master of Laws, Lord Harwin Beesbury, spoke softly. "What if killing him makes him a martyr? What if the people begin to see him as the wronged one?" Aelora's eyes turned cold. "Then we'll show them what true power looks like. We will remind them why dragons rule Westeros." Outside, Valix bellowed into the coming storm, and Morgan answered in the distance, for the first time in generations, dragons would face each other in the sky. The night skies of Crackclaw Point were alight with flame. It began as a quiet maneuver. Aelora had ordered a precision strike. Her son, Prince Aemon, flew on Silverwing with a dozen knights cloaked in black and red, meant to land fast and eliminate Darren Waters before his rebellion could take root. But they underestimated him. Darren was no foolish dreamer playing king in exile. He had studied the histories, learned from every mistake the Targaryens ever made. He knew how dragons fought. More importantly, he knew how they died. As Silverwing descended upon the rebel camp, what should have been a slaughter became a trap. Dozens of scorpions had been hidden beneath the bramble and mud, aimed with chilling precision. Silverwing took a bolt to the flank and roared in agony. Prince Aemon fairly held his seat, his armor smeared with blood that wasn't his own. Fires erupted as the rebels sprang from the shadows, and then came Morgan. The black dragon burst from the tree line like a demon of legend, eyes glowing, wings splitting the air with thunder. Smaller than Silverwing, yes, but faster, and unburdened by a rider distracted by fear. Darren Waters was not afraid. He leaned into the wind, commanding his dragon like it was part of his flesh. The sky became a battlefield. Villagers miles away would later speak of it as a second sun. Flames burning, the clouds, lightning crackling across the water. Silverwing and Morgan clashed above the treetops, biting, clawing, hissing fury into the wind. Silverwing was older, wiser, but wounded. Morgan fought like a creature born of vengeance. The two dragons locked in mid-air, tumbling to the ground. In a fiery blur, Prince Aemon was thrown from his saddle. He landed hard in the riverbank, alive but unconscious. His dragon, limping and bleeding, crawled toward him, but Morgan circled above, blood dripping from its jaws. It could have ended them both right there, but Darren called it off. "Let them live," he growled to his followers. "Let the royals see their heir broken. That's more valuable than a corpse." Back in King's Landing, the court was in chaos. Aelora had felt it. Mothers of dragons always do. Her son was alive, but barely. Her blood was in the mud, her pride wounded. And still Maegor urged caution. "You act from fury, not strategy. You let your blood blind you," Aelora snapped, "and you let your spine rot while our enemies rise. That." Night the Queen made a choice. She donned black armor lined with red sapphires, the kind her ancestors wore when dragons were the only law. She climbed onto Valix and flew alone into the night sky. No council, no banners, no mercy. Word spread like wildfire. The Queen had taken to the skies. Meanwhile, Darren stood among his soldiers, fresh from victory, but uneasy. He had let the prince live to make a point, but part of him now doubted that choice. Morgan paced. Behind him, more aggressive than ever. "She's coming," Darren whispered to himself. The real dragon, and indeed in the far-off sky, a shadow approached, huge, fast, and burning, with something older than hate. Vengeance. The moon hid behind clouds as Valix tore through the sky like a comet of rage. Aelora gripped her saddle, armor rattling in the wind, her face a mask of firelight and fury. She didn't bring a fleet nor a war host. She didn't wait for alliances or approval. She brought a dragon, and for a Targaryen, that had always been enough. She found them just before dawn. Darren's growing camp nestled between hills outside Duskendale. The fires still burned from their clash with Prince Aemon. Dozens of tents flapped in the coastal breeze, and at their heart was Morgon, black as void, sleeping uneasily beneath a spiked wooden awning. Elora didn't hesitate. With a scream of "High Valyrian," she sent Valix plunging downward. The dragon answered with fury, unleashing a torrent of flame that painted the hills red. Soldiers barely had time to scream. Tents were vaporized. Men were reduced to ash mid-step. The silence that followed was filled only with the sound of burning flesh and cracking bones. Darren Waters ran into the open, eyes wide with fury, not fear. "You come like a coward, flying above," he shouted, as if the queen herself could. Here she did. Valix circled again, the air trembling with each wing beat. Morgan rose now, his scales smoking, his wings unfurling in a challenge. A second battle in the sky was about to begin, but this one would be different. Elora was no boy prince. She was seasoned in the saddle, raised by dragons and taught by ghosts, and this was personal. Darren leapt onto Morgan and they rose straight into the smoke-filled sky. The two beasts roared, colliding in mid-air with a sound like mountains breaking. Talons scraped, teeth tore, wings battered the air in fury. Morgan struck fast and low, but Valix had the height, the power, and the fire. Above the clouds, where no one could see, the true fight began. Darren screamed, urging Morgan to outpace her, to twist, to rise. But Elora whispered to Valix like a lover, guiding him with brutal grace. They spiraled together, fire against fire, red against black, and then came the moment. Morgan went in for the kill, jaws wide, eyes wild. But Elora had baited him. Valix rolled mid-air, bringing his massive claws down on the younger dragon's back. The crunch echoed through the heavens. Then came the fire, straight into Morgan's exposed belly. Darren screamed. His leg caught flame, his tunic igniting. Morgan buckled in agony. And in a final twist of fate, Elora gave the command that ended it all. Dracarys. The fire hit like a god's wrath. Morgan shrieked, wings ablaze, and fell. Not gracefully, not clean. He fell like a star crashing into the sea, taking his rider with him. The waves swallowed them both. Elora watched from above, hovering on wings now bloodied and tired. She didn't smile. She didn't cry. She only breathed, chest rising and falling like a forge still smouldering. By the time she returned to King's Landing, the court waited in silence. Maegor approached her at the gate, eyes searching for emotion. "Is it done?" he asked. Elora nodded once. "He's dead. Burned. Forgotten." But in her heart, she knew it wasn't over, because peace bought with dragon fire never truly lasts. Fear grows where fire passes, and somewhere in the ruined camps Darren left behind, among the ashes and bones, a girl knelt, barefoot, silver-haired, eyes burning with vengeance. She had seen her brother fall, and she would remember. The realm celebrated. From Old Town to the Vale, lords raised cups and shouted the Queen's name in feasts that lasted for days. Bards sang of Elora the Flameheart, the Dragon Queen who had struck down the usurper with divine fire. Peace, it seemed, had returned once more. The banners of rebellion were ashes now, scattered to the tides with Darren Waters' broken corpse. But fire once lit never dies quietly. In a forgotten corner of the Crownlands, near a burned-out grove where Darren's camp once stood, a child sat in silence. She was 12, thin, pale, with blood crusted under her fingernails. Her name was Nyra Waters, though none dared speak it aloud now. She was Darren's half-sister, born of a Volantane courtesan, and left in Westeros to remain hidden, even from him. Only after his death did she step out from the shadows. She had seen everything, the fire, the fall, the betrayal. She had watched her brother's dragon writhe in the sky, burning, broken. And when it all ended, she did not weep. She wandered the battlefield for days after the Queen left. Most of the corpses were unrecognizable, but one thing had survived. Not a man, not a sword, an egg. Tucked under the ruined bones of Morgan, barely warm, was a second egg, small, black with veins of crimson running through it like living scars. It pulsed. Nyra took it without hesitation. Fire had taken her family. Fire would be her revenge. Back in King's Landing, Queen Elora grew restless. She had won, but the victory tasted bitter. Her son, Aemon, still had not recovered fully. His burns had healed, but something in him had changed. He stared longer at the flames now, said less, smiled never. "Do you regret it?" Maegor asked her one night, when the two sat alone before the Iron Throne. The throne cast shadows across their faces, each jagged like the swords it was forged from. Elora didn't answer immediately. "I regret letting it go so far. I regret that our blood cannot seem to live without testing itself." "But not the fire?" he asked. "No," she said coldly, "never the fire. They tried to return to normal rule. Trade routes reopened. Rivermen rebuilt what the flames had touched. The Reach sent gifts to smooth over past support for Daron. But the North sent nothing. Not a raven, not a whisper. The Starks had gone quiet. One day, a message arrived. Not sealed with wax, but with scorched parchment. Inside, a single sentence written in unpracticed Valyrian: "The blood of the dragon does not die in the sea." Elora read it aloud in the council chamber. Maegor frowned. "A threat?" "No," Balin muttered darkly. "A warning. Nyra Waters had vanished from the Crownlands. No bounty hunter found her. No spy traced her path. She moved like smoke through the land, west, then south, then east. She found the Red Priests in Volantis, and they whispered to her. They called her Daria Zaldrazis, the last dragon. The egg she carried pulsed in her sleep, grew hotter each day. It began to speak to her in dreams. Burn them all. She never said when she'd return. She never had to, because across the narrow sea, far from Westeros, in a dark chamber deep beneath a ruined temple, the egg cracked, and a scream was heard in the fire.